What if the tide of war could be turned by a single soldier? Not a hero forged in the spotlight, but a ghost hidden in plain sight, a warrior whose name was buried under layers of protocol and prejudice? What if the one person who could save them all was the one they tried to break? This is the story of that soldier, the one they pushed into the mud, never realizing she was the rock upon which their victory would be built. The air at Forward Operating Base Bastion was a toxic cocktail of burnt cordite, diesel fumes, and the metallic tang of fear. For 3 days, the perimeter had been a drumbeat of mortar fire and probing attacks, each one more brazen than the last. Inside the Tactical Operations Center, a flimsy structure of sandbags and corrugated metal, Specialist Anya Sharma worked in silence. Her fingers flew across the comms console, rerouting encrypted signals through failing relays, her face a mask of calm amidst the escalating chaos. She was a ghost here, a logistics and communications technician assigned to keep the lines open. To the men around her, she was just part of the machinery, another cog in the vast, grinding engine of war. They saw her slight frame, her quiet discipline, and dismissed her. They never saw the fire banked deep in her eyes, a chillingly ancient blaze that spoke of loss and a resolve forged in crucible of personal tragedy. Her family, erased from the world in a border conflict years ago, had left behind a legacy of survival she carried in her very bones. She cleaned her rifle not as a duty, but as a ritual, each component handled with the reverence of a surgeon preparing for a life-or-death operation. The men laughed. A comms tech polishing her weapon like a frontline grunt. They didn't understand. They couldn't. Major Cade Jennings, the acting base commander, certainly didn't. He strode through the TOC with the unearned swagger of a man who confused authority with competence. His face was perpetually flushed, his commands a series of panicked barks that only sowed more confusion. He saw Sharma as a clerical error, a female presence in a place of masculine grit and glory. "Keep those channels clear, Specialist," he'd sneer, never using her name. "Wouldn't want you to break a nail," Anya never responded. Her silence was her shield, her focus her armor. But as the third day bled into a night of relentless assault, she saw something no one else did. On the satellite feed, a flicker of movement in a dried riverbed, a shadow that didn't belong. The enemy wasn't just probing the walls, they were flowing around them, a pincer movement aimed at the base's unprotected rear medical tents. A slaughter was imminent. Her blood ran cold. She had to warn them. The main perimeter wall blew inward with a deafening roar, showering the TOC in dust and debris. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into the emergency red glow of backup power. "They're in the wire. They're in the wire," a voice screamed over the radio, dissolving into static and gunfire. Major Jennings was apoplectic, shouting contradictory orders into his handset. "Sector 4, fall back. Sector 3, push forward. Where is my air support?" Anya stood from her console, grabbing a tactical tablet and striding toward him. The data was clear, the enemy's path undeniable. "Major," she said, her voice steady and low, cutting through his tirade. "You have to see this. They're flanking us through the wadi. Your reserves are in the wrong position." Jennings whirled on her, his face a mask of pure fury. The audacity of it, a low-ranking tech, a woman, questioning his command in the middle of a firefight. "Get back to your radio," he bellowed, his voice cracking with rage and fear. "I give the orders here." "Sir, you don't understand," she persisted, holding up the tablet. "The med bay will be overrun in 5 minutes." That was when he snapped. He lunged forward, not as an officer, but as a bully. He grabbed the front of her body armor, the force of it knocking the breath from her lungs. "I said, this is a man's fight," he roared, shoving her violently. Anya stumbled backward, her boots slipping in the slick mixture of mud and spilled water on the floor. She fell hard, the tablet skittering away as she landed in the grime. For a moment, she lay there, the cold, wet mud seeping into her fatigues, the shouts and explosions a distant roar. She looked up at Jennings, who stood over her, chest heaving, a sneer of triumph on his face. In that moment, something within her shifted. The ghost became a predator. The sound of rotor blades slicing through the smoke-choked air was their only salvation. A black hawk, flying low and fast without lights, descended like a vengeful god into the heart of the chaos. From it emerged Colonel Marcus Thorne, a man whose legend was whispered in every corner of the conflict zone. He was a relic from a harder, more honorable war, his face a roadmap of scars and his eyes holding the weight of 1,000 battles. He took in the scene in an instant, the breached wire, the disorganized defense, and Major Jennings preening over a mud-caked specialist while his command fell apart. Thorne's presence alone seemed to change the atmospheric pressure. Jennings. What is the meaning of this circus? His voice was gravel and steel, a command that tolerated no argument. Jennings paled, snapping to a clumsy semblance of attention. Colonel. We're repelling a major assault. The situation is under control. Thorne's gaze drifted past him, landing on Anya as she rose from the mud. He saw no fear in her eyes. He saw no tears. He saw a cold, calculating fury. She ignored Jennings completely, retrieving her tablet and pointing toward a young, terrified private. Get a message to Sergeant Reyes's squad, she commanded, her voice ringing with an authority that defied her rank. Tell him to collapse his fire team to grid 047. The enemy is using the wadi for cover. He can create a kill box there. The private stared, frozen. But Thorne had seen that look before. It was the look of a natural-born leader, a battlefield tactician. It was the look his own mentor, a legendary operator named Sharma, used to have right before he turned the tide of an impossible fight. Do it, Thorne ordered the private, his eyes never leaving Anya. He turned his full attention to Jennings, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You are relieved of command, Major. Now get out of my sight. As Jennings scurried away, Thorne knelt, not to help Anya, but to look at her tablet. The data was impeccable. The analysis, brilliant. Report, specialist, he said, his tone all business. Anya didn't hesitate. She delivered a concise, brutal assessment of their tactical situation, outlining the enemy's strategy and a 3-point counteroffensive that was both audacious and surgically precise. It involved sacrificing a non-essential supply depot to lure the bulk of the enemy force into a pre-sighted artillery trap. It was ruthless. It was perfect. Thorne listened, his expression unreadable, then keyed his own comms. All call signs, this is Valkyrie Actual. Cease current maneuvers. Stand by for new directives. He then relayed Anya's plan, almost verbatim, across the command network. There was a moment of stunned silence, then a chorus of confirmations. The battle for FOB Bastion shifted on its axis. The fighting was savage, but directed. Coordinated. Anya stood beside Thorne in the flickering red light of the TOC, calling out enemy movements before they happened, anticipating their every move. She was a conductor orchestrating a symphony of controlled violence. By dawn, the assault was broken. The silence that fell was heavy, punctuated by the cries of the wounded and the distant crackle of fires. The cost had been high, but the base had held. Thorne stood amidst the wreckage, watching the medics work. He found her by a shattered barricade, cleaning her rifle with the same meticulous calm she'd had before the world exploded. Sharma, he said. It wasn't a question. She looked up, her eyes meeting his. My father served under you, she stated, her voice flat. He taught me to read a battlefield. Thorne nodded slowly. General Arjun Sharma was the finest soldier I ever knew. He spoke of his daughter. The one with his eyes. He said you had the gift. He paused, his gaze sweeping over her mud-stained uniform, the insignia of a specialist. What in the hell are you doing as a comms tech? Her answer was quiet, laced with a pain that was still raw. When he died, the army became a ghost to me. I wanted to serve, but not to lead. Not to be responsible for lives. That is a luxury you can no longer afford, Thorne said, his voice leaving no room for debate. "Jennings wrote you up for insubordination." I tore up his report. "As of 0800, you're on my staff." He was taking her to a place far from the relative safety of the FOB, a black site known only as the Quarry, the training ground for his elite unit, Spectre. There, he would see if her father's gift was truly hers. The Quarry was a place of ghosts and harsh lessons. It was where Spectre team was forged, and where operatives were broken. Thorne put Anya through a gauntlet designed to shatter the strongest will. He didn't train her, he tested her, pushing her to the absolute limit of her physical and mental endurance. Gunny Sergeant Reyes, Thorne's right-hand man and the grizzled heart of Spectre team, was assigned to evaluate her. He was a man of few words, his face a testament to a life lived on the ragged edge. He watched her run the kill house, his initial skepticism hardening into grudging respect. She moved with an economy of motion he'd only ever seen in seasoned operators, her instincts flawless, her aim unervingly precise. She wasn't just good, she was a natural. Major Jennings, reassigned to a humiliating logistics role by Thorne, saw it too. He watched from the shadows, his heart curdling with a venomous jealousy. He saw Thorne's mentorship not as a recognition of talent, but as a personal insult. He started whispering in the barracks, poisoning the well. "The colonel's pet," he'd hiss. "Playing soldier while real men die. She'll get you all killed." The whispers found fertile ground. Spectre was a brotherhood, sealed in blood and sacrifice. Anya was an outsider, a woman, a tech with no combat record, promoted on the colonel's whim. They viewed her with suspicion, her presence a disruption to their tightly knit world. Thorne ignored the whispers. He saw the warrior beneath the quiet exterior. He officially assigned her to Spectre, giving her the call sign Oracle. Her first mission was a baptism by fire, infiltrate enemy territory and rescue a downed pilot, call sign Goldlancer. The tension in the Osprey on the flight in was thick enough to choke on. The team ignored her, their silence a wall of hostility. Gunny Reyes sat opposite her, his eyes unreadable. "Listen up, Oracle," he finally grunted, his voice a low rasp over the engine's roar. "Out here, rank doesn't mean a damn thing. Trust does. You haven't earned it. Stay behind me, follow my orders, and don't get anyone killed. Am I clear?" "Crystal, Gunny," Anya replied, her voice calm, her gaze unwavering. She understood. She knew this was part of the test. Trust wasn't given, it was forged in the crucible of combat. And the crucible was waiting for them. The mission went sideways almost immediately. The intelligence was wrong. The pilot wasn't in a crashed helicopter, he was in a fortified compound, a prisoner. Their simple snatch and grab was now a full-blown assault. Worse, as they approached the compound, the night exploded in a hail of gunfire. It was a perfectly laid ambush. They had been sold out. Tracers stitched the darkness, RPGs turning their cover to dust. A man screamed, his cry cut short. The team was pinned down, exposed, their communications jammed. Chaos reigned. Through the storm of bullets and explosions, Anya's mind became a sea of tranquility. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. She saw the geometry of the battlefield, the angles of fire, the rhythm of the enemy's fusillade. While Reyes was trying to rally his men, she was already moving, a shadow darting between ruined walls. She found a vantage point, her rifle becoming an extension of her will. One shot. A machine gunner fell silent. 2 shots. A sniper in a window vanished. Her movements were fluid, her shots precise. She was creating a path, a sliver of hope in the maelstrom. Reyes, a nasty shrapnel wound in his leg, watched in disbelief. The tech, the colonel's pet, was moving like a wraith, dismantling the ambush piece by piece. She wasn't just fighting, she was hunting. She laid down covering fire, her terse commands cutting through the panic. Reyes. Northwest Ridge. Mortar team. Take them out. He didn't question it. He relayed the order. Explosions rocked the ridge, and a crucial piece of the enemy's offense went silent. It was her tactical genius that punched a hole in the enemy's net, allowing the remnants of Spectre to fight their way out, dragging their wounded with them. They didn't get the pilot, but they made it back alive, a feat that should have been impossible. The extraction chopper was a morgue in flight. The silence was thick with grief for their fallen brothers and a new, unsettling respect for the woman who had saved them. Back at the quarry, the weight of their losses was crushing. Anya stood before Colonel Thorne, her face etched with exhaustion and fury. "The intel was a trap, sir," she said, her voice shaking with contained rage. "They knew our insertion point, our numbers, our objective. Someone on the inside gave us up." Thorne's face was grim. "You're sure?" "I staked my life on it. I staked their lives on it." She gestured to the med bay where Reyes and the other wounded were being treated. Major Jennings had access to the final mission parameters. He signed off on the transport manifests. The accusation was monstrous, an officer betraying his own men. Thorne's jaw tightened. He had seen the venom in Jennings' eyes, but this was a new level of depravity. He didn't dismiss her. He saw the cold certainty in her eyes, the same certainty he'd seen in her father's. "I will handle it," he said, his voice a low promise of retribution. He began a quiet, methodical investigation, pulling data logs and communication records. Meanwhile, the culture within Spectre team began to shift. Gunny Reyes, his leg bandaged, sought her out in the armory. He watched her strip her weapon, the movements clean and efficient. "I was wrong about you, Oracle," he said, the words costing him. "Out there. I've never seen anything like it. You saved us." From that moment, he became her shadow, her fiercest advocate. He shut down the whispers with a single, icy glare. He told the others what he saw, how her mind worked 3 steps ahead of the enemy. He made them understand. She wasn't the colonel's pet. She was their weapon. Intelligence finally located the enemy's command nexus, a fortified mountain fortress belonging to the warlord who had orchestrated the ambush. It was the heart of the snake. Taking it down would break the insurgency in the region. It was also considered a suicide mission, an impenetrable citadel. Thorne gathered Spectre team in the briefing room. The mood was somber. He laid out the assault plan, a complex, multi-pronged attack. Then he did the unthinkable. "Tactical command on the ground will be handled by Oracle." A stunned silence filled the room. To give field command to a specialist, a newcomer, was unprecedented. But this time, no one questioned it. They had seen what she could do. They trusted her. Jennings was in the command tent, a sneer plastered on his face as he monitored the comms. He had been assigned to relay intel from drone overwatch, a role he intended to use to finally crush the woman who had usurped him. As Spectre team began their final, desperate assault on the fortress, the fighting was brutal and intimate. They fought room to room, corridor to corridor. Anya was in the center of it, a whirlwind of motion and command, her voice a steady presence in their ears, guiding them through the labyrinth of death. Then came the message from Jennings. "Command to Oracle. Enemy reinforcements massing on your eastern flank. Heavy armor. You need to pull back now. Reroute through the southern tunnels." Anya froze. It felt wrong. The intel didn't match the flow of the battle she was seeing, feeling. Her gut screamed it was a lie. At that exact moment, Reyes's voice crackled in her private comm. "Oracle, I've got eyes on the south. Those tunnels are a death trap. Wired to blow." The betrayal was laid bare. Jennings was trying to lead them into a grave. Anya made a split-second decision, trusting her warrior's instinct over the chain of command. "All Spectre elements, disregard last command," she broadcast over the open channel, her voice like ice. "Command is compromised. Repeat, command is compromised." We are pushing through the center. Now. She rerouted them on the fly, using the enemy's expectation of their retreat to her advantage. They crashed through the central command chamber, a move of such audacity the defenders were caught completely off guard. She had ambushed the ambushers. Over the open channel, for Thorne and everyone else to hear, she exposed Jennings' treachery, laying out his false intel and the tunnel trap with cold, irrefutable clarity. The warlord's fortress fell. In the aftermath, as military police led a sputtering, defeated Major Jennings away in cuffs, Anya stood on the battlements, the rising sun casting a golden glow on her exhausted, grime-streaked face. Colonel Thorne approached her, his usual stoic expression softened by a profound respect. He didn't see a specialist. He saw a commander. He saw the legacy of his old friend, Arjun Sharma, reborn and reforged in the fires of battle. But he also saw something more. He saw Anya, a leader who had earned her place not through rank or privilege, but through courage, sacrifice, and an unbreakable will. She had been pushed into the mud, dismissed and underestimated, but she had risen from it, not broken, but tempered like steel. She had found her redemption, not by running from her past, but by embracing the warrior within. They tried to bury her, to silence her, to break her spirit. They failed to understand a fundamental truth of this world. What do you do when you face an enemy you cannot break, a spirit you cannot tame? You follow it into battle. Share this story if you believe that true strength isn't found on a collar or a sleeve, but in the heart of the warrior who refuses to stay down. Comment below with a time you witnessed unexpected resilience, and let us honor the quiet heroes among us.